I was out there in September, and there's a big pack rat's nest just inside the door. Are they part of the Leo legacy? So these two things are on the picture I just showed you, and this one are on the what's referred to as the O'Neill homestead. Anything else?
Yes, Charlie, who owned the present town of Prairie prior to the Nature Conservancy in Kansas State? How did they get it?
The succession of ownership is Dewey's, then George Davis, Frank McDermott, David McKnight, who was a veterinarian. Some of you may have heard of David McKnight, who worked at K-State. And the Nature Conservancy bought it from McKnight. Actually, they bought a piece of property down in Oklahoma and swapped with McKnight. You mentioned the fact that Kansas State owns it. Konza Prairie is in 2 counties. We'll go back to this other chart. You can see the Riley County, Gary County line right here. This part of Konza Prairie, from this point on over, is in Gary County. Kansas State owns that piece, all 917 acres of it. Yes,
Nature Conservancy bought that too and then gave it to them.
that's right. The Nature Conservancy, and I can't remember her name, but who can remember her name? Catherine Ordway. Gave the money to purchase this. Initially, just the Gary County part. Who owned that before the?
Alf Landon's wife.
Alf Landon's wife. That's right. This was the first choice that K-State had for research area, but Alf Landon was a little leery of conducting business with the state institution. He was a governor. So they then found another piece of land just on the east side of Highway 177. But before they could find the funds to buy that, the Hudson Ranch bought it. You know the Hudson Ranch? Pretty good sized operation. So they came back to this one and bought it. Well, remember, this was sold at public auction in 1930. And the people who bought it were land speculators. And Alf Landon's mother-in-law bought the Gary County part from the land speculators. Then she passed it on to her daughter. And what was her daughter's name? Theo Cobb. And Theo Cobb's daughter is, right. So it was owned jointly by Theo and her daughter. Yeah.
Don't they still own land on the south side of interstate,
You bet they do.
the Landons?
Yes. See, this was all part, this is the interstate. This was all part of the Dewey Ranch, but it's not part of Konza.
Okay, we're dividing it up here. How many acres is in the Konza Prairie?
8,600.
8,000, well, that's the biggest. That includes all the old Dewey Ranch, right?
No.
Oh, except for what you mentioned down there.
Down below the interstate.
But the biggest part of the Dewey Ranch is
Oh,
in
yeah.
the Konza Prairie.
Absolutely. There were initially almost 11,000 acres. Konza consists of 8,600.
Yeah.
Well, The Nature Conservancy, at the same time they took possession of that Geary County property, made it over to K-State. So K-State owns that Geary County property that's on Konza. When they decided that that 917 acres wasn't enough, that all the watersheds started outside that, they started looking for an additional strip a mile wide. And they got to the Nature Conservancy and said, can you help us out with this? And the Nature Conservancy looked into it and found that the whole ranch, the Riley County part of the whole ranch, could be had. So they bought the whole shebang from county line northward. They were on their way to make out a deed to give all of this to K-State, and one of the people said to the other, why are we doing this? If we give this to K-State, they can make a golf course out of it if they want to. So they said, okay, we'll just hold off.
You should have, that way you wouldn't have all them cedar trees growing up there.
But this cannot be sold, right?
That's
I
correct.
mean, it stays with the Konza.
That's right.
Forever.
There wasn't no cedar trees in that, out there till K-State got a hold of them. If they'll learn when to burn pastures, we'll get rid of them cedar trees.
There is a piece of property right here that was not part of the old Dewey Ranch. It's called the Towey, H-O-E-W, the Towey property. And this is the Hokinson property, and this is known as the White Pasture. And none of those three pieces were part of the original Dewey Ranch. Well, when the Nature Conservancy bought this piece, it didn't own this, it didn't own that. At that point, they did own the Hokinson place. So, they wanted very badly to pick up this piece, the Towey property, because it was basically an inset, a hole into the side of the property. So they had a plan afoot to cut up the White Pasture into lots, building lots, sell them off and use the money to buy the Towey property. Well, Nature Conservancy didn't go along with that at all. So they just flat out bought the Towey property and the White Pasture, kept it all in one piece.
Full of questions. Kansas State does use that for grazing purposes, right? I see cattle in there all the time.
There was, in one of the paragraphs of the agreement between the Nature Conservancy and Kansas State, there is a paragraph that says, this will be used for ecological research only. It will not be used for production research. However, the effects of cattle on rangeland is ecological research.
Well, I see them in there all the time, so.
You only see them over here.
Yeah.
On the eastern side, you'll see cattle ranging, and only in the summer. You will see bison in the bison enclosure, and one of you docents can tell me how many acres are in the bison enclosure.
2,500.
How many?
2,500, is that right?
Almost 2,500. And they maintain a herd of about 250, but of course every spring you know what happens. You drop about 75 calves. So what do you do with the calves? You keep the calves, but you make room for them by selling something else. You sell them to a zoo or a farm or a ranch or something like that if you can. And if you can't, well, you know what comes next.
And
The slaughterhouse.
there's a provision in there for recreation, the trails, which are very valuable.
There is no provision in the original document for that, but it's
Very
ready.
worthwhile to
It absolutely is. And have all of you been out to Konza? Do you know about it? Have you been on the trails? Good. The more people, well, maybe I should. Right now, if I had not been working out there on a yearly basis for 19 years, I wouldn't recognize the trails that are out there now as the same trails that were out there in 1994. Joe back there has made highways out of some of the trails.
Well, just filling in the ruts.
In case you don't know, Joe was the original, I don't know, what was your title, Joe?
Oh, I was what, research manager? Yeah.
Well, he basically managed the physical property out there.
Wonderful.
And I asked him a question, he said, I don't know. When was the O'Neill house moved out there? Joe said, I don't know.
There used to be an old gentleman who lived here in Manhattan, the town, his name was Kyle Reynolds.
Kyle Reynolds?
Yes, well,
Glad you
And
mentioned
I
that.
can tell you one thing, where I've been out there since he quit managing it, the Kansas State managed with it, there's not as good a grass as it was back when he took care of it. Not by a thunderbolt.
If you look at this map, Reynolds owned most of this strip at one time. And he is very familiar with Konza Prairie. What was his first name?
We called him Kyle Reynolds.
I was gonna say HF is what I think I had him down as.
He lived here in Manhattan.
You would be surprised at how many people in the Manhattan area worked out on the Dewey Ranch at some time or another. And by the way, it's still referred to as the Dewey Ranch. It's not referred to as the George Davis Ranch or the Frank McDermott Ranch or anything. It's the Dewey Ranch.
I got a question about the map. I've been wondering about the map. Okay, when Dewey first came in, got the property, he had the color yellow, that was his,
No, his is the orange.
that's all he had when he started.
Well, when he started, his first piece of property was that. Then his second piece of property was this.
Charlie, go to
Yeah.
another slide.
Pardon?
Said you got another slide that's got all the dates when Dewey acquired the land. That one,
Yeah.
there you go. You see the March of 1872,
1872
right there.
and 1881, and over here it's 1890, I guess. But keep in mind that after the big die-up, that tough winter, he bought about 5,500 acres here. And this map doesn't show that. This map just shows the original purchasers.
At one time, before 1940, I believe it was, some of the land that the Cools own now was part of the Dewey Ranch.
That's the part south of the interstate, down here.
Yeah.
Well, there's some north.
Can anybody tell me,
Wasn't it Chef Ranch located?
It's
on Deep Creek?
It was up south of Alma, I think.
No, they have several pieces of land.
Now I remember,
Chef,
Yeah.
I have a picture of this big chef barn.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's my grandfather's cousin, but it's not on this concept.
yeah, there were 3 chef brothers, weren't there?
Yeah.
And one of them lived in Wanugo and had an iron foundry there.
Dewey and Albert and Herman.
Yeah.
I think Albert's on one side.
Yes.
One daughter still lives.
The land that is under management by Nature Conservancy, is it on the tax roll?
K-State pays the taxes.
Yes.
So it did not get removed from,
Oh, no. That is basically what K-State pays for the use of the land. They pay the taxes. They grow some wheat out there, they sell bison and buffalo, if you want to call them that. I don't care. Yeah.
What year they put the fence in there? You go drive, bird put 4 hours a day. Putting the new ranches. Oh,
I have no idea when you put that fence in.
24 hours a day, we were.
How's it going?
Well, can I, you've actually discovered a gold mine here this afternoon. And thank you so much, Charlie. Could I offer to let them stay and look at maps afterwards, or do you need to get out of here too? No?
I need to look at his photo album.
Okay. Charlie's going to be here and stay. But thank you so much, Charlie. Very informative. And thank you for coming. A couple of announcements. In the very back,